All right, guys, I think we are live. Please join me in welcoming Carlos Camarena, Fany Camarena, Emma Collier, who's joining us from Athens. Carlos, Fany, you guys are in Arandas right now?
Yes, we are home in Arandas. That is correct.
Beautiful, and you've got a beautiful back bar, back shelf behind you with some very nice tequilas that we'll be talking about later this afternoon. Emma, you're in Athens today?
Yes, I am in Athens. I'm home in Athens.
And there's someone glaringly missing that most of you will notice. We're missing my dad, Tomas Estes, who very unfortunately had a little accident last week. But the good news is he has had successful surgery. He's in recovery, but he won't be joining us for the next couple of weeks, at least, for our live streams. He's still not in touch, reachable by phone or by email, but please send any messages you'd like to share with him to my email address, jesse@ochotequila.com. Emma will put it in the comments. Now, if you want to send anything, any message to my dad, if you want to send a little video message, that would be very nice. I'll compile everyone's messages together and send him something when he gets back home.
Yeah, and we'll be making a separate post about that in the next day or so, just so that you guys know and what we're doing. And we definitely welcome all the videos. It'll make a really nice collage, a really great thing to share. So I've just put Jesse's email in the comments. So anything you want to send, just go ahead and shoot it over to him.
And just to introduce everyone here, my name is Jesse Estes. I'm the global brand ambassador for Tequila Ocho. Up here, at least on my screen, is showing on the top left. We've got Carlos Camarena, who is a man who shouldn't need any introductions in our community, in our industry. Carlos is a fifth generation tequilero, maestro tequilero, master distiller, and also agave grower. Fany on his left, on our screen, on our right, is sixth generation now, tequilera and agavera. And we'll be talking a little bit about what it's like to work in a family business, and especially a family business with such a rich heritage and history. I could carry on and list Carlos's accolades and awards, but then we would lose our entire live stream just talking about that. There's too many to fit. Thank you guys for joining us. We're on Zoom, so we can't see your comments or your questions, but Emma is keeping an eye on Facebook. So any questions you have for Carlos, for Fany, for myself, please do post your questions on Facebook. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from, if you've got a drink in your hand, what you're drinking, and just share anything you'd like on the comments section. If you're watching from Bart's Academy in Holland, hello to all you guys. Thank you for tuning in to our live stream. Emma, sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to add to everybody that all your comments and questions, we will be addressing them in between topics. So I'll be keeping an eye on them. I'll be taking note. And that way, you know, we'll just have a natural pause in between topics we want to cover today so that we can get to all your comments and questions. So don't think that we're ignoring them. We're definitely seeing them. We're definitely going to get to them. We just will have natural pauses in between everything we're discussing to address all of them. So, yeah.
So I've got a list of questions. This is one that keeps coming up again and again. This will be for Carlos first. There's so much interest around the bat-friendly project, of which obviously La Alteña, which is the distillery that produces Ocho, Tapatio, El Tesoro de Don Felipe. You know, you are one of the key producers that's involved, and I know you know a lot about this project. So I would love it if you could share with us. For me, the challenge is always to explain this in a way that's simple enough to make sense to people, because I think there's a lot of complexity to this project. So if you're able to, and you're very good at explaining this, if you're able to explain in a kind of relatively simple way, that would be great.
Okay, and I will try to make it short, as I tend to get excited and spend a lot of talking about it, but very short, what this project is about. Well, I will start by saying that as the agave has 4 different ways of reproducing, 3 of them are non-sexual, but also waiting for the agave to reach full maturity. And after reaching full maturity, the agave will flower and eventually seed. But also in that single event, all of the sugar, all of the energy of the agave plant will be consumed. The agave is, all of its life is kind of collecting energy for that single process, which is sexual reproduction. So if we allow the agave to produce flowers and to produce seeds, we will lose all of the sugar that we would need for tequila. That is one of the main reasons why usually we do not allow the agave to reproduce sexually, as we would be, again, losing all of the sugar and therefore no more tequila. So as the agave also reproduces non-sexually, we can collect clones of the same plant, genetically the same. Let's say when the agave has in between 2 and 3 years of being planted, therefore we don't have to wait 7, 8 years for the agave to reach maturity. In 2 or 3 years, we are able to collect hijuelos, which are little clones that grows through the root, and therefore we can use those to establish new fields. That is what the industry has been doing for the last 120 years. So very little agave allowed to reproduce sexually. And as a result of that, well, most of the blue agave in Mexico are just clones. And we have lack genetic diversity, which in the long run also it is a risk. Now that the viruses are kind of in everybody's mouth talking about it, I hope that you don't really have them. But anyway, what happens if eventually a virus or a bacteria, some disease affects the agave? It could wipe them all completely, as the agave doesn't have natural resistance. Natural resistance comes through hybridation or to sexual reproduction of the agave plant. So the main purpose of the bat-friendly project, it is to allow the small percentage of our agaves reaching maturity not to be used for tequila, but actually allow them to grow the quiote, to produce flowers, and eventually produce seeds. That is where the bats come in. As this plant is also a succulent, during the day is dormant. At night, it is when it's actually making all of its living functions. It is the same when it's flowering. During the day, the flowers are shut down. At night, the flowers will open up and start producing nectar. Who is there to collect that nectar? It is the bats. So the bats, even if they have not such a good reputation, and now the people says that the new coronavirus came out of a bat, which I actually doubt. But without the bats, we couldn't live too long as a human species, because the bats consume hundreds of tons of insects per night, but also there are some species that are pollinators, and they are as important in the pollination as the bees. And the pollinators of the succulents, including the agaves and the cactuses and a lot of different plants, are the bats. So by allowing these agaves to reach maturity to produce flowers, we will be giving the bats a little bit of food in the area. And what do we expect in exchange? It is the bats to bring pollen from a different agave, not from another blue one, because they have exactly the same genetic information. So we are hoping that they will be bringing pollen from another agave species, so we can have kind of like a little process of hybridation. I mean, we can have new genes coming into the blue agave, and eventually those seeds that will be produced will provide individuals that are slightly different. I don't say physically different, but I would say with a slight genetic different information that in the long run could provide the agave plants with some natural resistance in case of an attack of this bacteria, this virus, or this kind of disease. So in few terms, this is what the BAT project consists of. I was lucky enough to have been invited to be part of this by Dr. Rodrigo Medellin, which is also known as the Batman of Mexico, because it is an authority on bats. and David Suro from the Tequila Interchange Project. They invited us, and we are proudly part of this project, doing what we can. As everybody knows, also nowadays we are facing a shortage of agave, so not plenty of agaves to allow them to reproduce and to produce seeds. However, we are doing our best in order to keep on being part of this project and to keep on actually helping a little bit the agave to gain a genetic difference that could be translated into natural resistance.
Thank you, Carlos. And speaking of David Sura, I saw that he's tuning in, he's listening. So hello, David, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, David.
So yeah, to summarize, it's taking a step, hopefully a measure to prevent some kind of, almost like phylloxera for vines, right? 100 and some years ago, 130 years ago. And try to avoid that with agave by naturally reintroducing genetic diversity into the species. And there's a group from the University of Mexico and obviously TIP and Dr. Rodrigo all involved. This is going to take time, right?
That is correct. I mean, if you assume that the agave takes average 8 years to reach full maturity to produce flowers and seeds, then you collect those seeds, plant them, wait for the new plants to be born out of those seeds, to sprout out of those seeds, and then wait for another 8 or 9 years for those plants to reach full maturity, so you can have a second generation being cross-pollinized and then bring a little bit of more new genetic difference. So when we started this project, I thought that I would never see anything in my lifetime, because I said, well, in corn or in wheat, in grains, they can introduce changes in, let's say, 8 years, 8 generations. For the agave, 8 generations means about 80 years. And I don't think I can live that long, that's for sure. So I was thinking that I was kind of planting the seed for the new generations, for my family to keep on going and to make sure that they will have a future in the tequila industry. Because again, if a disease attacks all of the blue agaves, it could wipe them all out, and therefore there would be no tequila. So that is why the phrase, without bats, there's no tequila, because we need the bats in order to have this process going. Fortunately, even in the first generation, we have detected small genetical changes. There has been tests run by the National University of Mexico, and they have already detected that there's new genes. In which direction they are going, we don't know. And we have a few plants that we have grown in our greenhouse that we detect slightly difference also on its physical appearance. And then I was consulting with experts in that matter, and they were saying that the agave, actually, there's so many species of agave because the agave can hybridize very easily. So hopefully I will see a little bit of light in my lifetime, and maybe we won't have to wait for 80 years for this kind of conversion or this natural resistance on some of the agave plants to happen.
That's great news, Carlos, and that's really exciting news. Just out of curiosity, because this is the first I've heard of that, how would you characterize or how would you describe the physical changes that you've noticed already in some of the plants?
Well, slightly thicker leaves in some cases, slightly longer spikes or spines also. So you can physically see that there's some difference already happening there. The question that some people might ask is, are those still considered blue agaves? And the answer is, they were born from a blue agave seed. How would you call them? It is a blue agave, just with a slight difference, which is the result of this cross-pollination that we were hoping that the bat would make. So that is a result that we are happy to see.
I think that's a really important point that you just made, Carlos, is you know, if it becomes some kind of hybrid, a lot of people have brought up that question, what do we then call it? I think that's a really good point, and it's very succinctly put by you, so thank you. Actually, I'm going to pull up the screen share again, and maybe I can just show some photos that Fany sent me recently, and you can just describe what we're looking at on the screen here. If I can figure out how to use Zoom. I'm still a very slow learner. I'm a very bad millennial with technology. So
that one is people also collecting, they were collecting seeds. Okay, yeah, they were collecting seeds, taking samples, also samples of pollen being analyzed by the university to see if we were bringing in pollen of different species. So that is part of what we were doing. I just saw another photo you had there that it was a little plant that was already born, yes, there, from seed in our greenhouse, which was we established about 4 years ago, the first ever greenhouse that it is dedicated, but to nothing else but to grow blue agave by seed. So there is one of the results.
Beautiful. I love these photos, Carlos. And I didn't realize it had been 4 years already. I thought maybe 2 or 3 years, but 4 years already. That's fantastic.
4 years. The first generation, those little plants of the first generation of seeds that we planted, we are about to transplant those into the open fields this year. So again, by using a little clone anijuelo, you can plant it immediately and it will start growing. For a seed to reach the size that it would survive by its own in the field, it has taken 3 years. And then wait for another 7 years for that plant to reach maturity. You are talking about 10 years for every single generation to happen. So again, that's why I was mentioning 8 generations could mean up to 80 years, because it is 3 years for that plant to reach the size. And that is another reason why not a lot of people is doing it in blue agave, as it is very time consuming and very costly to do. And when the agave is cheap, it's fine. Everybody can do it. When the agave gets pricey, not a lot of people wants to be involved on this because it is actually costing a lot of money. But our perception in my family, it is that it is not everything in life is about money. It's about planting your seed for the new generations, which in this case is getting prepared, is literally, it is getting prepared for the future. So my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids will have a future. So that is what we are planting now. We are planting the seeds of their future, not only blue agave seeds.
Carlos, I'm very excited to hear that these will be going into fields soon. And I hope we can, I think we should harvest that field and produce something special from that batch, no?
Actually, a small percentage of those plants will remain to have been cross-pollinated so we can have a new generation out of this. If we harvest all of those, then we would lose the advantage of the genetic diversity. So the challenge is, out of those, we may harvest a few to see what happens with the new run of tequila, but also we have to be conscious that we need to leave some there in order to be, again, cross-pollinated so we can keep on gaining a little more genetic diversity generation after generation of those same plants.
Well, it's like you said, it's a very long-term project, and thank you and to your family for doing this, because it's, you know, what is the price of blue agave on the open market right now?
In between 29 and 30 pesos per kilo.
And you know, 10 years ago, it was what, maybe 1 peso per kilo or a couple of pesos?
If you were lucky, I mean, there was some coyotes or people in the middle that were paying the grower down to 30, 40 cents of a peso per kilo. So right now, people considers the agave kind of like a blue gold. I mean, there's people that is making a lot of money out of this. And I can tell you the last 2 or 3 years, there has been so much agave planted that we will begin the cycle again. In 7 years from now, the price will come crashing to the ground because there will be way more agave than what the industry can process. And the people will get disappointed and they will decide to stop planting agave because it is not a good business at that moment. And therefore, 7, 8 years after that, we will have another agave shortage. Agave shortages are cyclic. We have had one agave shortage every 16 years in the last 120 years. For those reasons, the agave taking so long to grow and mature. When it is pricey, everybody wants to do it, and then they lose money. And when they are losing money, everybody wants to pull out. And 8 years down the road, there's another agave shortage. So surprisingly, that this cycle keeps on repeating over and over. It means that we haven't learned anything, but it is happening again. So it is not a matter of having a crystal ball to guess the future. We can see the future in the agave according to what everybody's doing today.
Yeah, very, very good point. And again, you know, thank you and to your whole family for sticking through this, through these kind of periods of higher prices for blue agave, and for looking forward into the future. Luckily, we have a long time to wait, but we have plenty of tequila today, touch wood, to keep us, you know, not thirsty for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 80 years, if it takes that long.
As long as we have some friends that are thirsty, we will try to quench their thirst with some good tequila.
Excellent. And Carlos, one last question before we move on from the bat friendly. Some of the Tequila Ocho bottles and Tapatio bottles, and I assume El Tesoro bottles, we don't have El Tesoro right now in the UK, but I'm assuming they also have some bat friendly bottles, some bat friendly labels, but not all of the bottles have the label. Is that correct? And why is that?
That is correct, because this program is not for a whole distillery with all of its brands and its products can have this sticker, actually, or this hologram. Only the tequila that was produced from the actual field, that a certain percentage of agaves were left to mature and produce seeds, those are the ones that, after having been checked and certified by the National University of Mexico and the Tequila Interchange Project, can have the hologram that will show that that particular field and that particular batch of tequila was bat friendly. So not everyone is bat friendly. What will happen in 7 years? I hope that once there will be plenty of agave, the price will be crashing down into the grounds. Not only more people in the industry will join, but probably by ourselves, we will be able to have more and more and more bat-friendly fields, and therefore more bat-friendly tequila. So if we are lucky, in the future, we may have all of our products certified as bat-friendly. Right now, it is, again, a small percentage of those products that have the hologram of bat-friendly, only if they were produced from the actual field that the agave was left to mature, to produce flowers, and to produce seeds. We have a bottle right here with one of those also, with one of those stickers that comes from, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, right there. There you go.
Yep.
Well, that is the sticker. This comes from Las Águilas field, which, by the way, it is not that you had in your pictures. The one you had in your pictures was La Latilla. This is from a different field, Las Águilas, so different fields, but only the field that had that process of allowing a percentage of agave to flower and seed, it is the one that will get the hologram showing that it is part of that project.
Thank you, Carlos, for taking so much time with the bat friendly. We'll check in with Emma just to see if there's any questions about bat friendly so far before we move on.
Yes, we actually do have, we had one question that got answered already about the cross-pollination. And then we've got two questions from Stein, actually. So I'll try to tie them together and just see if that works. The first one was, what percentage of the agave should bloom to generate enough genetic diversity?
Well, according to the project, the bat-friendly project, in regular times, we are let's say, to be part of this project, we are enforced to allow 5% of the agaves in a particular field to produce flower and produce seeds. In shortage times, like the one we are having now, it is 3%. But also in different studies that have been made, we can have up to 250 bats visiting the flowering plant per night. So the impact that we may have, it comes in the thousands of bats that have been fed, and also at the same time, thousands of bats that are bringing new genetic information into our own plants that are at that moment producing seeds.
Thank you, Carlos. Stein, did that answer your question, hopefully?
Yeah.
You always have very good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, he had one other one just quickly about, he says, Jose Cuervo had a project where they did something with the quiotes, surfboards, he mentions after that, and he wants to know if there's something that is done with the quiotes at La Peña.
Not in our particular case. Once the quiote is completely grown and after producing seeds, the quiote becomes almost like wood. It is very fibrous. So one of the common uses for quiotes was for people in the fields. It was to use them as fences or part of fences, or even for roofing, because again, it is a very, very thick fibrous, almost like a wood pole. In our case, we haven't done nothing in that matter. We are more focused on just the reproduction side and of course the tequila production. So we haven't used the quiotes for anything else.
Thanks, Carlos. Emma, any other questions on Bat Friendly?
No, that's it. Just lots of shout outs, lots of love to everybody from a whole big wonderful group of people. And just a quick comment I want to share, just so Stephen Garrett said that he loves the responsible practices that you guys are doing. It's just one of his reasons that Ocho is his favorite brand. So it's a special piece of love. Thanks, Stephen, for that.
Thank you very much. Carlos, you thanks for the love. Carlos, you mentioned a number of times during the Bat Friendly talking about planning ahead and thinking ahead to the next generation, which of course is sitting to your left, but even maybe future generations in your family. Carlos, you have, and Fany both, you have a very rich tradition and history in tequila producing culture. Carlos, if I'm not mistaken, and I get this wrong because there's so many greats, your great-grandfather, right? Two greats, started producing tequila, I guess in the 1880s in Los Altos de Jalisco, is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. We keep on wondering why eventually he decided to bring some plants from the Tequila Valley, because the blue agave is not even native from the highlands of Jalisco. So it was introduced into this area actually by my great-great-grandfather. And there's stories in the family that at that time his employees would tell him, hey, master, because at that time it was master, it was amo. So they would say, hey, master, now you are paying us to plant this damn plant that is not edible. Nobody knows what it is for. Someday you will have to pay us to get rid of it so we can plant some corn and some beans, something that we can actually eat. So how come he decided to bring those plants here and eventually to build a very rustic, small distillery in the middle of nowhere? It is still kind of a mystery for us, but it is how he started. And when he started producing tequila, of course, there was no commercial name, there was no labels. He would produce locally and he would sell the bulk liquid in the closest towns of Jesus Maria and Arandas. And that was it. So I usually say that we started kind of like moonshiners. We were blue agave moonshiners because it was not even legal. Very important at that time. There was no taxes to be paid. Everything was kind of under the table. Unfortunately, with the turn of century, we had a couple events here in Mexico that actually in those two events, the distillery got abandoned and got destroyed. And those were first the Mexican Revolution, in the 1910s, and right after that, in the 1920s, we had the Cristeros War. It was kind of like a civil war because the President Calles at that time decided to ban religion, and the people in the highlands is very religious. So they decided to take the weapons to fight against the government for their freedom to go to mass and to attend church and all that. In that event, the government decided to concentrate all of the population, the rural population was concentrated into towns. So the government could kind of control them. And so the original distillery got in abandonment for about 30 years, and it was built of adobe, so it came crashing down. It was back in 1937 when my grandfather, who still was planting and growing agave, and at the time he had contracts to supply some big distilleries in the Tequila Valley. But in one of those cycles, there was more agave than what the industry at that time could process. Well, at that time, there was not even industry, but there was more agave than what the tabernas for tequila could process. The price was very cheap. And so therefore, the companies that he was selling agave to told him that they wouldn't buy anymore because they didn't need agave. And why to bring agave all the way from the highlands if they had more than plenty in the Valley of Tequila? So my grandfather's choice, it was, well, I will leave the agave there in the field to rotten and I will lose that investment, or I will start doing what my grandfather did. His grandfather produced tequila. And he used to say, well, I will produce tequila. If I may sell some, that's fine. Otherwise, just give me patience, be patient with me, and I will drink it all. But this is the only way that I can save my crop. It is by transforming the agave into tequila and putting that into barrels, into tanks. And then if I don't sell it, I will drink it. But I can save my agaves. And that is how La Alteña Distillery was born, or was built in 1937 as a consequence, again, of one of those agave cycles that are over and over again recurrent in tequila history.
Well, I think I can speak for everyone watching us today that we're very grateful that your great-great-grandfather and then your grandfather, picking back up on his legacy, decided to produce tequila. And just to pick up on something that I've never heard before from you just now, you said that originally it would not have even been called a distillery. It would have been referred to as a taberna. Is that right? Did I understand that?
Same as we could say all of the producers of mezcal in Oaxaca, they call their distilleries, they are called palenques. In this area, all of the distilleries were called tabernas. So one of the oldest brands that you know, Cuervo, it was La Taberna de José Cuervo. It was about the taverns. Well, not tavern in the Irish sense, but they were called tabernas. The place where alcohol is produced, those were the tabernas in the Jalisco area.
That's really interesting because obviously raicilla, which is also mostly produced in Jalisco, they're still called tabernas. So maybe there was a time, I don't know, where actually, tabernas producing, using blue agave, what we would call tequila now, and what was still raicilla back then, maybe they were not so different 130 years ago.
That's for sure, but they were not so different. And nowadays, as everybody knows, tequila can be produced only with the blue agave Weber plant. But back in the day, still back in 1940s, we could use up to 6 different species of agave to produce tequila. So not only the blue one, actually the blue one, it became as a law to produce or to use only that one because it is the species of agave that could grow the fastest and would have the highest sugar content. So the reason why we are using the blue agave only, it came from an economical decision.
More political.
But still nowadays, I keep on, sometimes I feel frustrated saying, hey, we should be able to still experiment to use those other agave species that were part of tequila from the beginning, not new species, not espadín or not duranguensis, no, the original ones that were used for producing tequila. So we could have also a wider variety of aromas and flavors coming out of our products. So we were limited to blue agave because of an economical decision.
Carlos, I'm already seeing that we're very likely going to have a second session because I'm already learning so much more from you today and so many more questions I want to ask. Just out of curiosity, do you know if your grandfather was producing, tequila or agave distillates, whatever we could call it back then, using those other species? Was he producing with non-blue agave species in the 40s?
Absolutely. The Bermejo, the Siwin, the Saguayo, the Blanco, because we have the Agave Tequilana Weber blue variety. So Weber also classified another Agave Tequilana as white variety. And then it came another people who also renamed that plant to Agave Pseudo Tequilana Trail. So the same plant, but it was the Blanco and also, did I mention the Swin, Saguayo, Pata de Mula? So those were the ones that were used. But again, if we are so specific as to have a blue variety in the Tequilana Weber, it means that there's more varieties, right? The Blanco, the white variety, also known as Agave Pseudo Tequilana.
Very, very interesting. And would that tequila have been bottled under the Tapatio label, under the Tapatio name, or a different name back in those days?
No name, no brand at the beginning.
No name and no brand at the beginning, but still in my grandfather's time, before it became a law that you could use only the blue one, yes, of course, my grandfather was also using some of those other different species. Unfortunately, now some of those species are just in my collection because we cannot use them commercially, but I do have Blancos, and Lily, my sister, have some Bermejos, and then I think I have one Cenizo. So we still have a few of those that are just for kind of ornamental purposes in our own personal collections, not for commercial use.
And how old are some of those that you've kept, Carlos?
I mean, they can. There are some that can last 10 to 12 years to reach full maturity. Again, economical reason why the blue agave was selected, because in 7, 8 years it would be mature. So why wait 10 or 12 if you could have a plant that would have highest sugar content in less time?
Thanks, Carlos. And Fany, now I'm going to switch over to you, staying with the theme of family, because, you know, I think it's fascinating, and we could spend a whole session just talking about your guys' family, because you've also got cousins that produce tequila, and you know, there's a lot going around with the Camarenas in terms of tequila and the heritage and the history, and we'll get more into some of the innovations more recently that you guys have been a part of in the industry. I think everyone can see this photo of. This is the photo of you guys, obviously, Carlos in the middle with your wife, Monica. Fany, we can all see on the right. And then Marie-Fer, which is on our left as we look at the screen. Marie-Fer joined the company, the family business, at the beginning of last year. Is that right?
Yes.
1 year ago.
About 1 year ago. And Fany, also, I want to hear more from you about your role, but you're kind of, you look after pretty much all things Tequila Ocho in Mexico, among other things. And you're one of the key team members in the marketing team globally. And then you're the last sister, which is who's right next to you, Fany, is Carla, right?
Right.
And Carla is in school?
Yeah.
And I think, if I know correctly, I think she's going to join as well soon when she finishes school. Is that right?
That is correct. That is the plan. She's studying global commerce. And when I asked her why she decided to study that particular career in college.
In terms of helping us.
Yeah, she said, "Are you kidding me? I want to do what you do. I want to keep on traveling the world and spreading the gospel of good tequila." I said, "Okay, welcome to the team." So as soon as she's finished, probably she will be joining the team, because they decided by their own, that's what they wanted to do.
Well, Carlos, that makes us all very, very happy. So it's going to be your 3 daughters, and your son-in-law is also, Fany, your husband, Andres, is also involved in the business, right?
Yes, well, he's a mechanical engineer, and he was hired to build the new machinery for labeling. And after that, I don't know what happened, but he's still there helping us. And yeah, I think we are very lucky to have all the family involved. As you mentioned, I study marketing, and well, in that matter, I have so much to do, but the good thing and the hardest thing I think is for me is to learn more about the production process, get involved on the agave fields, how to treat with the people in the distillery. So it has been very, very fun. Maybe not that easy as people can think like, yeah, she's the daughter. She has everything very easily. It's not that easy. Of course, this industry has been seen as a male's industry. And of course, we have some stuff that I have to take care of and show people that I can learn and I can really do my part in this family.
Well, Fany, how long has it been now? It feels like about 4 years, but I'm so bad at keeping track of time that it may be longer. How long have you been with the family business?
Almost 6 years now.
6 years. All right. See, I can't, it feels like less, but it just goes by so quickly.
I too, but for example, now I say that I have been here for 6 years, like working full time. But before that, when we were in high school or middle school, vacations, I used to go to the labeling and the bottling plant to fill bottles, label the bottles again, and learn from the beginning, you know.
And besides learning, it was when they were not in school, there was no weekly allowance. So, oh, you want some money, you want to buy this, you want to buy that, you come to work. Learn and work, and then you will get paid, and then you will learn how to make your money, and therefore you will know how to spend the money more wisely than just saying, I want. No, it is very difficult to earn money. You have to know how to spend it. So that's what they did since they were kids. And I remember Marifer coming to the bottling plant when she was still using diapers, 2 years old, something like that. And it was dangerous. Whenever she could find some drops of tequila coming out of the pipones or something, she would be tasting those and saying, tequilita. Or if we had a party, we had to collect all of the used glasses immediately. Otherwise, she would come and collect from everybody's glass and drink it all.
So, still do that.
So they have been involved in tequila since very, very, very early ages.
Yeah.
So now I know why, Fany, you're so good at the Jima, because your dad had you at 5 years old getting with the koa, right?
No, at 10. At 10, at 5 was too
but I'm not very good at that. No.
So Fany, this is a nice segue into my next question, which is growing up, you were around agave, and I listened to your who was it? It was with, I couldn't listen to the one with Tequila Wanderer. You did another live stream. I can't remember who it was with, but it was
with La Cava del Tequila.
That was it. Thank you, Fany. And talking a little bit about growing up in the family business around the fields and the distillery. How has it been for you? I know unofficially for your whole life, and then officially, let's say for 6 years with the family business. How has it been for you joining the family business? And then after you answer that, Carlos, because I've already seen, you really add your own touches to the brands, and the same with Marifer now in the last year. So I'll ask Carlos afterwards what he's noticed in terms of you guys kind of bringing your own personalities to the company, and in my opinion, very positive change, I think.
Thank you. Well, it has been very, very fun, very, very happy time for me. It is my dream come true. Since I was a child, I remember in the mornings, in Sundays or Saturdays, when my dad said, okay, today we have time to go to the fields, and I go with my mother to, please give me some jeans or something, because we're going to the spikes, to the agave fields. So I grow listen to that stories about the agave, going with my dad to see the jimadors, things like that. And now that I have the chance to join, of course, it was like my first choice to do it. It is a dream come true. It's not that easy. It has a lot of challenges, but I am enjoying every part. And maybe a few people that is watching knows that my dad is not somebody that is going to tell me, okay, now you go and do that. And then when you finish, you come and ask me again. And then, no, he's like, okay, so just go and find some work to do. So I started just like, okay, what is going on here? What I can improve, what I can develop, new forms or new ways to do things. Basically first at the administration area. But now, of course, I'm happy to join as well. Now that we are building a new distillery for Tequila Ocho, it's like we are learning so much from scratch on how to do tequila and how, what tools we need, how we want to do it, what is going to be our water source, etc. So it's plenty of knowledge that I have to take, and of course, very big shoes to fill.
But that's an interesting point, and we're going to come to that very shortly. I think there's a lot of people very excited to hear more about the new distillery. That must be a really nice feeling, I imagine, for you, that you're actually going into, you're coming from, you know, La Alteña, which has so much history and tradition and so much respect and love from the industry, which is fantastic. And that's always going to be there, I hope, you know, for many centuries to come. But you're also starting something brand new. I imagine that's exciting.
Yes, with the new distillery is like two feelings, you know. Like I have the feeling of keep in La Alteña, that it has been our story for all these years, and now look into the future and see what else we can do and how can we improve maintaining the way we believe and the way we like to do our tequilas with quality, of course.
So I just one last point. You said, you know, it's not always easy joining a family business. I have a little bit of experience in that. You know, there's good things and bad things. I think both of us have many more good things that outweigh the possible downsides. And you also said, you know, sometimes it's difficult because people look at you and they say, oh, well, you know, your dad is Carlos Camarena, your dad is Tomas Estes, and you know, they kind of think that maybe you don't work hard, but I know that you do firsthand from working with you, and you brought so much professionalism, especially around the marketing department, which was non-existent for Tequila Ocho before you joined. So thank you, Fany.
Thank you. I know you work very hard as well.
Sometimes drinking is work, right, Fany?
It's very easy to do this kind of job.
Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do it. It is a hard job. As I tell the people, well, for other people, I cannot even imagine. I mean, for regular people that gets late at night at home and they kind of smell or look like they have been drinking, and if they happen to be married, as I say, the wife would get mad at them saying, hey, where were you? Instead of coming straight home from your work, you went to the bar with your friends. In the meantime, I'm stuck here dealing with the kids and washing the dishes, and you are having fun and all of this. So it is difficult. If I arrive home early, my wife will, and I don't smell like I have been drinking tequila, my wife gets mad at me, says, what the hell are you doing here? You're not working. And you haven't been working. I can smell that you haven't been working. So, but if I arrive a little bit tired, late night, I smell like I have been drinking a little bit, or I smell like tequila, she will say, oh, poor you work so hard. So it is hard to be in this business. Somebody has to do it.
I hope my brand new husband would say the same.
Difficult.
And since we're talking about, and that photo was, I love that photo of you guys that I just had up of the whole family. And to us, it's so exciting that, you know, I've seen those t-shirts and that kind of hashtag that says the future is female. I'm so excited that the future of La Alteña and the future of the new distillery, which we'll talk about shortly, is female. It's very, and it's not something you see often, like Fany said, it's not something you see often in the tequila world, unfortunately, but it seems like that's changing.
Yeah, that's good for us.
And Carlos, how have you found it with your more and more of your daughters joining the business? And you know, I've certainly noticed changes around some of the brands. And anything you can comment on, anything that's kind of excited you to see happen in the last 6 years with Fany, 1 year with Murray Fair?
I think that every new generation will bring also a new mindset, a new way of doing things. I remember, as a personal experience, my father used to use a typewriter all the time. So when I insisted that I wanted to have a computer, my father used to even get a little bit mad at me, saying, "No, I can't do that with my typewriting machine, that you with your computer, they are useless, they are not good," and things like that. So, and it was difficult to introduce that change. So what I have seen with now Fany and Marifer being part of the business is that they brought new vision. Besides the fact that they know more about technology and they can reach to more possible consumers through social media, and they have the preparation on marketing and also on publicity, but they have fresh minds. So to give you an example, Tapatio as a brand, it was a tequila that was considered, in all of this area, it was considered the tequila of the old people. The tequila that, oh yes, the tequila that my grandfather used to drink, the tequila that my father used to drink, but not me, because I am young and I have a different vision and different philosophy and all that. So that image is not mine. I keep on wondering how Fany did it, but eventually all of the young people was drinking Tapatio, and we didn't change the presentation, we didn't change it. And she converted everyone from thinking this is the tequila for the old people to thinking this is my tequila. So how they did it is because they have a new vision, and
I drank with them.
And they have been, again, working very hard in preparing since they were little. As I said, there's no free food. You want something, you work for it. That is what I have been trying to teach them. Is not because you're my daughter means anything. It means that if you want to work in the company, you need to earn your place in the company. Not because you're my daughter, it means that you can be part of it immediately. It means that you have to show that you are able to do the job, and you will be judged exactly the same as every other people. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair. And I have to be honest with you, even if sometimes they feel very proud, but the proud is me, because they are doing great things. And Fany started doing only a little bit of marketing. And I can tell you now, she's all the commercial director. She, together with Andres, they run the whole show in Tequila Ocho. Sometimes they tell me, well, you are not paying that much attention to Ocho. And I say, well, guess what? When you have two kids and you see that one kid stands by its own, you don't need to be interfering all the time. And you are doing a great job, and therefore you don't even need my interference there. So keep on doing what you're doing, and we are good. It doesn't mean that I'm not interested. It means that I'm overseeing, I'm checking. And if you are doing things right, I have nothing to say. Keep on doing it. So it has been quite an experience. They can say I am not an easy boss, and I have a reputation of being difficult and very grumpy. And yes, I'm a perfectionist. I like things done right from the beginning, and that's it. And unfortunately, as somebody said, maybe I created not a monster, but three, because they are the same. They want things well done. So that's the way it is. Is you want things right, do it yourself, or train your family to do things right from the beginning, so you can eventually retire or work a little less harder, because you know that the company, the business, the reputation of the family is in good hands. So they will do an excellent job, and I have no question about it. And actually, I am even more happy because of the fact that they are women, because you were mentioning about women, and women, I think that they are more careful on how to do things. We male are a little bit more rough. And therefore I say, hey, yes, it is good. The distillery will be run by women. We are already training also women from a fourth generation of distillers that we are training women. So they may remain at La Alteña, and their parents could come to the new distillery, or the parents will remain at La Alteña, and maybe they will come and help us out to start running the new distillery app. So, but we are focused on, hey, you want something well done, bring a woman to do it.
I agree, Carlos. I think women in general, as a generalization, have more attention to detail than most men, again, as a generality. But you know, your attention to detail and your family's attention to detail in tequila production, I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we can taste it in the bottle. It is, you know, it's on a level apart, I think, in my view. And you're talking about the new distillery. So I think we'll hold off on questions just until I would love to hear more about the new distillery, guys, whatever you can share. I got to go for the first time when I was over for Fany and Andres's wedding at the end of last year. And I only saw it from the outside, but it is in a beautiful location, not much I know. And it looks like the construction is coming along fairly well. So anything you guys can share with us today about the distillery would be great.
Well, we keep on building. Fortunately, tequila was considered an essential business in Mexico now with this coronavirus situation, and therefore we were able to keep on producing. But at the same time, in different areas, construction has been stopped in Mexico in areas that are considered non-essential. So, but if construction, it is part of a company that is considered essential, can keep on going. And therefore we are lucky that we haven't stopped our building and our construction, and we keep on doing this. The plan is try to have it ready for the first test, the first runs, and to have the CRT permits by the end of the year. So we keep on doing what we can. And also I know, probably because I hear this question very often, is why a new distillery? And I usually say, well, actually, we have been very lucky with all of our brands in the last few years. They have all been very healthy, growing, and there is not enough room at La Alteña for all of the brands anymore. So there was time to build a new facility. Unfortunately, even if we have a big ranch by La Alteña, the La Alteña by itself was built in the very last corner of the property where water would come by gravity, where all the conditions are. So we are kind of stuck. There's no place to grow there. So it was time to use also a new facility. Another thing is when we started with Tequila Ocho, your dad and myself, we started the brand kind of like a challenge, like a joke, let's say, that we wanted to prove that the terroir did exist on tequila, but we had no very ambitious plans and marketing and all of that. The idea, as we originally talked about it, it was, okay, let's produce some tequila that we will feel proud of. And eventually, again, as we cannot drink it all by ourselves, I told your dad, you may sell some at La Perla and at Café Pacifico in some of your locations. And that was the vision at that moment, and that was it. So to our surprise, it has been very well received internationally, and the brand has been growing and growing and growing. And it is the same what is happening with El Tesoro, and it is the same what is happening with Tapatio. So there's no more room. It was time to build a new construction. Also, as we started this kind of like let's see what happens. Not all of my family was involved in that because it was more like a personal project to show that terroir exists. And that is why the brand name Ocho, because we produce a series of samples. And on a blind tasting, your dad and myself, we concluded that the sample number 8, Ocho, was the one we wanted. So we said, okay, this is the tequila that we want. What about the name? Ocho. Why? Because it is what it is. It is the sample number 8. It is the muestra número 8. So that became the name. So we were not even thinking about marketing and fancy presentations and this and that. That was not the idea. So what I can tell, because I receive a lot of questions regarding that, is La Alteña and therefore Tapatio as a company, it is a partnership of my mother, 3 of my sisters, and myself. Tequila Ocho, as part of a different company, Compañía Tequilera Los Alambiques, it is owned basically by my wife, my kids, myself. So therefore, we were kind of leasing the La Alteña facility when La Alteña was not producing Tapatio or Tesoro. as those brands have been growing and growing, I found myself that every day we would have less space to produce my own kid, that it was the Ocho, not the family business, even if I love those brands too, are in my blood. But this was kind of my kid. As I say, Tapatio was my grandfather's brand. El Tesoro was my father's brand. Ocho is my personal brand. So as I was looking at some constraints on production, we decided that it was time to build a new facility before the rest of the shareholders in Tapatio would tell me, well, you know what, there's not enough room for both of us, so what do we do? Say, let's build this distillery. Also, I have heard people saying, what's gonna happen with La Teña? Are you leaving? I said, well, I am the single major shareholder at Tapatio and La Teña, so I'm not leaving. What happens is that once we have this kid trying to run and to start a new facility, most of my time will be spent at the new location. Again, you spend more time with the kid that needs you the most, not the one that doesn't really need you that much. So I will be less in operational activities in La Teña, but more on overseeing and more on administration, but less operational, because I will be very fully operational at the new facility, checking the temperature of the new stills and checking every single piece of machinery, the ovens, what is the temperature, the time that we need in order to have a correct cooking, because at the end of the day, it is a new kid. So we need now to nurture that new kid in order to help this new kid, this new facility to stand on its own. So I hope that I answered those questions that were not made here, but I received over and over again. So I said, well, I will take the chance to talk what is my role and what will keep on being my role at La Teña and at the new facility and with all of the brands. Yes, I am integral part of all of them. And therefore, again, I have 3 kids. Sometimes I spend more time with Fany, sometimes with Carla, sometimes with Marifer, with the one that needs me the most at a particular moment. So I'm still having all of those kids, tequila brands, but I need to spend more time with the one that needs me right now the most.
And so thank you for that explanation, Carlos. To me, it really sounds like what we call in English a luxury problem. You know, the brands are all doing so well that you're running out of space. You know, you're running out of the physical space and ability to keep producing everything to meet demand. So that's really great news for all of the brands. And I think we'll see if Emma is finding any other questions on the Facebook comment section. And also I want to introduce Emma, because we introduced Emma in our first live stream that we did some time ago now. But Emma has joined us kind of on a project by project basis about 6 months ago. And Emma, you can tell us more about your background. She's just unmuting herself now and turning her video back on. Emma, I don't actually know. I know you spent a long time in San Francisco, but where are you from originally, and what's your background? I know you've done some journalism things. You're an excellent writer, but you've also worked in the drinks industry. And just tell us a bit about yourself.
It's a segue into this is that we touch on the family aspect of all of this. So thanks, Jesse. Yeah, I spent most of my life in San Francisco working in the spirits industry, doing PR and event planning up until I decided to follow my impractical yet wildly romantic dream of relocating to Athens, Greece, which is where I am now. And I came to be part of this. I came to be part of this great Ocho family, actually in one of those really serendipitous, like right place at the right time moments, where 2 years ago at the Athens Bar Show, I turned a corner and there's Tomas, and he's standing in an alley with a beautiful bottle of mezcal, and he's got a couple of people just right in front of him. They're talking, laughing, passing the bottle back and forth. And he looks up and he looks at me and he gives me just this beautiful, dazzling grin, and he just holds out the bottle to me. And I walk over and I take it, and we stand there for the next hour or more. Everybody else leaves and we just stand there in that exact spot, talking, swapping stories. And we've been doing that pretty much since then. We haven't stopped. And this connection, this feeling is sort of what led us to create what has been come to known as the Ocho Global Family Story Project, which is partly going to share more of the experiences of his incredible life, but also just these memories that he has created and what has helped build this incredible global family that we have through Ocho being the catalyst for all of this. So our first realization of this was actually making a video at the Athens Bar Show this year. So for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link in the comments on the Facebook Live now so you can check it out. And we also made a little trailer for it too that I'm going to leave as well, just because it's got some great outtakes in it that we didn't use in the full video, and it's pretty funny. So I'm just gonna drop both of those in there. And really this project is just getting started. So thanks for a chance to talk about that, Jesse. And yeah, you guys stay tuned. We've got lots of exciting stuff regarding this coming your way.
And just for those of you who joined us more recently, who weren't tuned in at the beginning, you'll notice that my dad is not on the live stream with us. Very unfortunately, he had an accident last week. He's okay, he's out of the hospital, had a successful surgery, and now he just needs some time to rehabilitate, but he's okay and getting better every day. And so please, if you want to send him a message or a note, he won't have email or phone for the next few days at least. So please send me an email, and Emma will just put that again in.
Yeah, I'll put Jesse's email here.
And if you want to send a short video, please do. We'll put those all together and into a longer get well soon video for him. I imagine there may be some questions about the distillery, or some questions since we last took our round of questions. Emma, should we have a look?
Yeah, there's actually a bunch of questions, and a lot of them are seeming to really curiosity about what will be different in the new distillery. And we've got a lot of compliments actually, so I just want to also touch on those too, just so you guys can really get that great feedback. Everybody is really just blown away by what an incredible legacy you have created. There's been lots of great comments about how the future just looks so bright and so warm and welcoming, and people are just really celebrating all the information that you've been sharing about your family, about all of the messages, all of the tradition, and and just in celebrating Ocho, in general, and everything that you're creating. So it's impossible for me to list all of that. That would be like another 30 minutes. We'd be sitting here just going through every single comment, but just know that everything you've been sharing here today, people are just blown away by the wealth of information, and there is a lot of interest in a part two. So I'm sure that we are going to put that together. We also were asked how to buy a barrel of Ocho, and so I just want to throw that in there. How do we buy a barrel of Ocho?
You can get an Ocho single barrel. You can get your own dedicated barrel of Ocho, but you can't buy the physical barrel itself. So as you all know, 100% agave tequila, of which I'll say this on behalf of Carlos and his family, have only ever produced in Narteña 100% agave tequila. To legally be labeled 100% agave, you have to bottle within the denomination of origin region, and then you can export. So legally, we couldn't ship tequila out of the distillery, out of Mexico, in a barrel. And we also, we need all the barrels we can get for our aged tequilas, so we're not selling barrels at the moment. But if you're interested, again, Emma already has put my email address in the comments section. So if you're interested in having your own single barrel of Ocho, we can look at how that could be possible.
Was also asked, Tahona be at the new distillery?
No, the Tahona, we use it for El Tesoro. We use a little bit of Tahona for Tapatio, but we have never used Tahona for Ocho, and therefore there's no Tahona in the new distillery. What we are doing is we are having, let's say, new building, but we are not changing the process. We are not getting modern. Maybe that is something the people is wondering. No, yeah. Actually, the ovens that we are building, because again, there will be no autoclaves and no diffuser. We are building ovens to cook the agave The ovens are exactly the same size, the same design, the same capacity as the ones we have at La Teña. And we will have open fermentation, wild yeast, wooden bats, so no stainless steel, but also Ocho has always been produced with a roller mill to extract the juice of the agave, not with the tahona, and therefore no tahona included at the new facility, because we are following exactly the same process to produce Ocho that we have at La Teña. We are replicating it at the new distillery, which we still refer to as the new distillery, but we are still kind of discussing the name of the distillery, because as you know, all the distilleries have a name. So we are thinking, we are not sure yet, maybe something like as simple as Tequila Ocho Mexico or something. But so far, we don't even have a name for that distillery. But to make sure, it is a new building and it is a different location, but the process will remain exactly the same, because that is what we want to keep on doing, not to compromise the quality or what we do.
Yeah, so in many
we
ways,
have been dealing with this process for years, so it is no time to start experimenting with something new. We want to keep loyal to what we do on a daily basis, and we will keep on replicating that in another location, but exactly the same process.
Yeah, you've answered a lot of what people have been asking about. So thanks so much for that. So a lot of it's been like, will the methods change? What's the name going to be? So it's just really great to hear that it is just essentially going to be a beautiful extension of what's already going on now. So there's just more room to create for everything that you're doing. So it's really nice to hear.
Yeah, and I've just seen the outside, and it has a beautiful view. It's kind of almost on the top of a hill, right, Fany and Carlos?
It is on a hillside, which actually the location is known as the Cerro del Gallo, so the Rooster's Hill. But that doesn't sound like a very good name for the distillery. Oh, it's not Heaven's Hill, it is Rooster's Hill. No, thank you. So we'll think of a name, but yes, it is on a hill, actually overseeing Aranda. So when you are at the distillery, you have the most outstanding panoramic view of all Aranda's town and the big church and all of the surrounding area and the blue agave fields. So it is on a prime location that I'm sure once it's finished, and once this coronavirus is gone for good, and once that we are able to again receive visitors and we have this distillery up and running, I'm pretty sure that everybody will just love it, because we already love it and it is not even finished yet. So I'm just kind of imagining how it will look like once it's finished and up and running. And I know that it will be a great experience for the visitors eventually to be there.
We're very excited.
I'm very excited to see it. So I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see. Any other questions, Emma, before we move on?
Will it still be a NOM 1474?
Oh, I've got to jump in here before Carlos answers. I just think this may be something for next time, but the NOM number is something so misunderstood in the tequila industry. And Carlos, I don't know what you think about this, but I think most people think that when you see an NOM number, it is definitive indication of that liquid coming from a certain distillery. But in my understanding, and I have many real life examples of this, that is not always the case. And with Ocho and Tapatio, it's a bit complicated because it's both at La Alteña, but they have different, I don't know what you call it, holding companies, Los Alambiques and Tapatio, right?
That is exactly what our NOM number is the let's say, a federal ID number to a people or to a company that has the permit to produce tequila. So that is why even at the same distillery now, two different companies, Tequila Tapatio Limited in one hand, Los Alambiques in another hand, we have two different NOM numbers coming out of one distillery. So the moment that we move to another location, we will keep on having the same NOM number, because that is the identification of the company, that it is actually, well, producing or at least selling that tequila, because that is where it comes the tricky part. Also, it is legal to sell bulk liquid among distilleries. So I could be producing, let's say, at La Alteña, and I could be selling bulk liquid to X, Y, or Z other producer, and they would bottle it, and then they would bring it to the market with their own brand, and it would have their NOM, because the NOM, it is not the physical location of who is producing. It is the name of the company that it is producing. And by producing, it means that by law, in order to be considered producer, you have to add value. So if you buy bulk liquid, bulk tequila at 110 proof, and you dilute that to 80 proof, you added value. So now it has your NOM, not the one that actually produced that at a different distillery. It is your NOM because you already made a little something to modify the product and to add value. That is what the NOM means. And therefore, yes, it might be tricky because it not necessarily means the distillery where a product is produced. It is the company that it is producing or at least selling that product, just by adding a little added value, even if it's a few drops of water, they are adding value. Therefore, they can use their NOM. That's why you see a lot of different NOMs also coming from a particular distillery. I mean, in our cases too. And then you see some other distilleries that produces private labels that then everybody of the new producers or the new people promoting those brands, they claim to have their own NOM. Yes, because the NOM is the ID for the company that it is in charge of adding that little extra value and selling it into the market, even if they never harvested an agave in their whole lives.
I think that's one of the best and most concise explanations I've ever heard, Carlos. So thank you. Hopefully that's interesting to you guys listening. It's the one thing, and it's not anyone's fault, because there's just a lot of misinformation going out at a very high level, I think, within the community, the tequila community, the tequila industry around this. And that is that, just simply put, NOM number is not a reliable indicator as to traceability. Is really what people are looking for. And that would be great to have that kind of traceability. But there's all kinds of things that can be going on. So the best thing is, most of the brands that people will be drinking, people watching us, are brands that well. A lot of, maybe the owners, or part of the family that produces it, or some of the local brand reps or brand ambassadors. And it is just hard to get traceability on a lot of brands out there. You just it has to be a brand you trust. But this thing of, a tequila can be produced at several distilleries under one NOM number, and vice versa. One distillery can produce many, many, many different NOM numbers, some of which may be taking tequila from different distilleries. So there can be a lot going on here. So I wish that NOM provided people with that indicator, that traceability that I think we all really want, but we can't rely on that 100%. So thank you guys for the question around that. Emma, any other questions?
Only good questions. Only good questions we have so far.
Very geek questions.
Yeah, yes. I think right now, since we probably only have a little time left, we should hold off and make sure that we get to anything else that you guys really want to make sure that we cover today before we save the rest for part 2.
Well, I'm just going to be very brief here. There's just a couple of things we wanted to share with you guys, and then maybe we keep I know we've gone over time, but maybe we just keep 1 or 2 more questions just in case, because it's a great opportunity for me to have both Carlos and Fany here with us. I just think it's fantastic. For me, it's very exciting. I've learned so much today already, and it's great to be able to ask them questions. So I feel like very selfish asking all of my own questions. I'm just going to share my screen again. So this was a fun project that we undertook last year, a fun collaboration. Carlos, these are añejo bottles that were aged normally, like our normal añejos, aged for 12 months, and then a finish in 3 months in these 3 different casks, left to right, cognac from Ferrand-Brie, and then the Jamaica 2002 plantation and the Barbados 2002 plantation. And I just was curious to hear your thoughts, both Fany and Carlos, because I think, as far as I know, tequila has never been finished, as far as I know, in a rum barrel before. I mean, maybe it's happened, but I've never heard of it. And what your impressions of this partnership, this collaboration, and these cask finishes, the final product, were for you?
Okay, ladies first. Fany, you want to mention a little bit about it, or should I start? As usual, the problem is if I get the mic, then I won't allow her to talk. Well, anyway, just a preliminary, and then I will pass it on to her. As far as I know, there had never been another tequila that was aged or finished in rum barrels. I think this was the first one. We were very happy to have Alexander Gabriel here in Mexico, and then we also visited him in Cognac, and we made there's Debbie. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and then we decided to make a barrel swap, meaning that actually we shipped some Tequila Ocho barrels to Alexander, so he would finish some of his rums in a previously used tequila barrel, and in exchange we got some French oak cognac and rum barrels, so we could also finish our tequila in those barrels and see what the difference were. Again, every spirit will impart its own characteristics, and it is not the fact that we are adding another spirit to the blend, but actually by receiving a barrel, even if it looks dry, some of the elements of the previous spirit are still kind of trapped soaked in the oak, and therefore you still have some little bit of extraction. So to me, I mean, we have already worked in the past with other of our brands, with El Tesoro to be more precise, with the ex-cognac barrels. So to me, that was not a big surprise what we could achieve with this. What it was a big surprise, it was what was happening with the rum barrels. The moment that I was smelling the tequila, yes, I could detect the agave, the full agave there, but then at the same time I said, molasses. What are the molasses doing
very
on
tropical fruits
on my tequila? And very tropical, and I actually felt transported to those tropical islands, either Barbados or Jamaica, and I was actually, as you see, I don't have a lot of hair, but I was thinking about letting my hair grow and to have some these nice how do they call the rastas, those hair that the Jamaicans uses, and I said, well, I felt transported. So to me, it has been such a unique experience as we have never had before, because again, I had already experience of working with ex-cognac barrels, ex-sherry casks, but first time with ex-rum barrels.
And in my opinion, all these three examples are very, very good. Barbados is my favorite, if I may say.
Mine is Jamaica.
Yours is Jamaica, okay. But you know, the thing about working with these guys of Maison Ferrand and Plantation Rum, it was very rich for us to share knowledge and share comments about what we do, because I think the passion, yeah, because they are similar to us. They like to innovate and to create new things and see what happens. Maybe people can call us nuts or crazy, but anyway, they're like us, and that's the thing.
We don't care.
Yeah, we don't care.
Have fun.
And we have a lot of fun with them, and I think they had it too.
I think Alexandre Gabriel, who's the master distiller and owner and master blender at Maison Ferrand, I think they call him the renegade of the cognac world. So I think, Carlos, you're very much also a renegade, and beyond that, you know, a pioneer and an innovator. So, you know, doing fun projects like this.
We have always been kind of referred to as the crazy guys of tequila industry. So probably it is in the same direction, yes, because we dare to do a lot of things that not many people in the tequila industry dares. And we have the motivation, and we have the patience and the passion to do them. And unfortunately, when time is money, you don't have all of that. And when you are only looking at the results and the numbers and the profits, you don't have that time. And fortunately, I think that we make a pretty decent living, and therefore those results are not the major concern. The major concern is, what if we do this? What if we experiment with that? We have the time and we are not in such a hurry to bring a result. Again, the same example as we had with the bat-friendly project. It's going to take a long time and it's taking a lot of resources. Who cares? We are working for the next generations. We are working for the future, or in this case, we are doing things for fun, not because we are obligated to do them. It's because we want to experiment and see what if. And that is exactly the same philosophy that Alexander Gabriel has. So we are those renegades that are always asking ourselves, what if?
Well, Carlos, I think I can speak for everyone listening when I say thank you for being, all of you guys, the family, for being crazy people, as you say, because the result has been some beautiful, beautiful tequilas. I think maybe we'll put a pin, so to speak, in the innovation sector, in the innovation topic around your family and tequila production, except to mention one thing, which I think is very interesting, which was just last week. This took place. These photos were taken last week. Carlos and Fany, I think you guys were watching the live stream with Alexandre on Instagram.
Yes.
And
Yes.
These are samples that Fany, you pulled from the barrels and you sent to Alexandre. And these are all the photos of the 3 barrels you saw before were released as single barrels. But what we decided to do, and there's a longer story that we told during the Instagram live session, what we decided to do is to create a blend instead of a single barrel release like we did with the first 3. So what you see here are 7 different barrels. 3 of them former rum barrels, 4 of them former cognac barrels. 1 is our normal extra añejo, which is from Loma Alta, if I remember correctly. Yes. And our normal añejo, which is from El Bajío, different field. And and Alexandre, being a crazy guy too, like you, Carlos, he came back and said, I haven't made 1 blend, I've made 3. So, which is very exciting, and totally different characteristics to each blend. So that's a very exciting project we have in the works. And then the last thing we were going to touch on was every year we release, for the last 3 years, we've released these limited edition Day of the Dead bottles. Last year was a black bottle, which maybe if it's working, maybe you can see on my screen. And this coming year will be a red bottle. So we're very excited about that. The mock-up looks really good, and those will be getting printed soon on the bottles. So that's very exciting for us. Carlos and Fany, anything you want to share that's upcoming in terms of news or anything to look out for?
I would like to go back a step and talk a little bit about the blends, because also the 3 bottles that you showed they were cask finish. So they were aged in the regular Ocho Añejo barrel for a year, ex-bourbon barrels, and then aged for 3 extra months in cognac or rum barrels. Those examples or those samples that we sent to Alexander to make the new blends that eventually we will be releasing, we were hoping that he would create 1 magnificent blend, and he gets us the surprise of saying, I have 3.
I already have
different samples that are so outstanding. But the difference is that this is not cask finished. They were aged. They are añejos, all of them, but they were aged for over a year inside the French oak ex-cognac barrel or inside the rum barrel. So it's not cask finished. It is completely aged, fully aged.
And we need to mention that the rum casks were different ones of the ones that we had, the cask finish. So now we have Fiji, Panama, what else?
Fiji, Panama, and Trinidad.
And Trinidad, yes. Yeah. So different profiles that you will find in these new blends that we will make.
And why different sources? Because also, same as with Ocho, it's all about the terroir. Also in Rome, there's such a thing as terroir, depending on the conditions where it was produced. And therefore, Gabriel provided us with 5 different barrels of rum from 5 different areas or from 5 different islands. So we could also experiment the difference on what the rum would provide according to which specifically area or which island the rum was produced using specific methods. So it is this part of, again, the geeky mind thinking on making all of this crazy stuff, which is creating and being the what it was, the renegades of doing things that other people wouldn't have the time, the patience, or the willing to do. We have time, we have patience, and we are willing to do crazy stuff. So that was just about those. It was to mention that this podcast finished. They were completely aged inside those barrels that were part of this the barrel swap that we had with Alexander Gabriel and my son Ferran.
That's a very good point, Carlos. And I have not tried these samples that are here on our screen now. Fany, you've done some really nice tasting notes. So I've been getting to live vicariously through your tasting notes for the time being. But you know, it's crazy to me, the 3 finishes. So again, not full aging, but 3-month finishes. There is such a big difference between those 3 after only 3 months. That to me, to try these after a full year, Fany, what do you think? It must be a really big difference.
Now you can imagine what you will find. Yeah, now I see that you are almost salivating. I see you saying, oh my God.
You can see that on the camera. I better cover my mouth.
I said almost salivating, almost.
And when you asked me to make the tasting notes for all of these bottles, I was like, okay, somebody has to do the hard work.
It's hard work, Fany. You know, that's the hard work that you and I we really don't like doing it, but we have to, right?
And I didn't mention that, but also she has had a little bit of formal training on tasting and a lot of informal tasting. I mean, training on tasting. So now most of the tastings and the tasting notes for whatever the brand it is, whether it is Ocho or whether it is Tesoro, she's the responsible one. I usually pass most of that job to her because I say, I already drank most of the part that I needed in my life. I still have some to go, but not so many. If you eventually have to taste 200 barrels, I say, it is a little bit too much for me because of my age, you know, my condition. So I taste maybe 40 of those and the other 160 will be tasted by her.
Good, strong delegation, Carlos. That's good. You know, it's so important to delegate hard work to your daughter. Right. And just to wrap this up, this project, which is all about family to us, I wanted to share this. This is Alexandre's wife, Debbie, who Carlos and Fany know as well. And she was actually helping and learning in the process how to blend with Alexander during his session, our session on the live stream. In fact, she may even be streaming here with the camera. So it was a very fun session to do it together on air live with Alexandre, and very fun that it's a family on all 3 sides. Is very much a family activity and family business. So let me try and get out of the screen share again if I can figure this out.
Thank you, Debbie.
What's that, Fany?
Thank you, Debbie, if she's watching this.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie, if she's watching this. Actually, who is watching this? David Suro says, thank you for the great chat. David, thank you for tuning in. I know you're very, very busy these days. Thank you. Ronan, who's saying he's excited for the Fiji and Trinidad. Ronan is from Singapore, or at least he's in Singapore now. And Stephen Ford from the UK, drinking Las Presas Blanco. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Martin, huge tequila fan. I'm only catching the last of the comments, guys, so I didn't get to see most of the comments. Emma, are you still on with us? I think we're probably going to wrap up. We've gone way over time. I hope this has been interesting for you guys. If there were any burning questions, please just post them again at the bottom of these more recent comments. And
We'll gather them for part two.
if you want a part two, I'll also put that in the comments. And you know, well, I think we're all stuck at home, but I'm not as busy as I would have been without the lockdown. So it's more for Fany and Carlos to tell us if they're free to do a part two. So we'll see if that's a possibility. Let us know if you're interested, and we'll go from there.
And just as one last thing I would like to share is, which I think will be a great piece of news for everyone, is while this live stream is going on, I just received a message from Tomas that sent big hugs. So that's really great to see. He's checking his emails somehow right now, getting caught up, and sent big hugs. So big hugs. And I of course, I wrote him back immediately and sent him all of our love. So yeah, for anyone who's just tuning in at the end, I'm going to go ahead and drop Jesse's email one more time just before we wrap up. Tomas had an unfortunate accident, but he's recovering right now and he's doing all right. And what we want to do is put together just a little sweet video collage, video clips, messages, anything you've got, anything you want to share to raise his spirits as he has a quick and speedy recovery. So I'm just going to drop Jesse's email one more time. Anything you would like us to include in this little video that we're making, please go ahead and send it to Jesse, and we'll be making a separate post about this in the next day or so as well. So keep a lookout for that as well.
And hopefully I'll check in with how he's doing, but hopefully part two will be with my dad. That'll be a great session. That's what today was supposed to be, with my dad and Carlos and Fany, but you got me instead. So hopefully next time with my dad.
No complaints on my side. That's okay. But still, we are missing your dad. And now that we know that he is looking at this, it is okay. I will send all of my love to you, Grandpa. So be careful.
What a good thing.
Well,
just
and we
get like
have another session.
A message.
So
you know, I don't know the context if he's watching us right now, but somehow in spirit, we connected to him, and so that's what matters. So really thank you guys both for being with us. We really look forward to part two, hopefully even all of us next time, and we can touch on everything else that we didn't have a chance to get to today, and any other topics that people brought up today as well.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Fany, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care. Stay home.
Thank you guys for being here.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.